Kid came home and caught me working on a dirt bike and got all upset. And I thought I understood why, because I know if I came home and found somebody working on my dirt bike or my truck, I'd probably feel about the same way as if I came home and caught him sleeping with my wife. However, apparently he was just upset because I wasn't wearing the stupid camera while I was working on the bike.
Apparently we're going to take all the fun out of wrenching too. Ned said that all the good moto vloggers do how-to videos, so he wanted me to go ahead and wear the camera while I'm working on the bikes, and if I got any useful tips to give out, to do so. So all I'm going to do is set this tire up. This tire came like this stock on a bike, and I'm going to set it up to be bomb-proof. So first thing we're going to do, pick out a good tire. This is a Trailwing 301 by Bridgestone, size 8100. It's a good tire if you're doing mostly street riding. It's not so good on the dirt and the loose stuff. This is a Pirelli MT21. It's a really good 50-50 tire. I've done better with this tire on dirt than I have full-on dirt tires. And it's not so bad on the street. It's pretty rounded, which makes it decent on the street. It's also a size bigger. It's a 90-90. There's where the big difference is going to be. But there's also a few other little tips. Oh, by the way, just in case you're wondering, this is a Michelin T63. I rode this for a little while. It's okay. It's not as good on the dirt as that MT21. On dry pavement, I don't really push the bikes enough to really make a difference, but on dry pavement it's probably a little better. It's probably somewhere in between the Trailwing and the MT21, but I don't think I'll be buying another one of those to ride. I think I'll stick to my MT21. You do get the T63, you might want to air it way down when you're off-road. So first tip here is don't tighten down these valve nuts all the way. Whoever had this bike last did that, and not a good idea. Probably want to leave it a little bit loose like that, so on the front tire, if you hit the brakes too hard, you can actually spin the tube inside the tire, and this will just snap right off. I've done that before. So if you leave this loose, it's a little bit less likely to snap. Alright, and then we're going to take the core out. Another good tip is get yourself an egg crate. You got a motorcycle, you can get you one of them tall egg crate thingies. They're great for holding your crap. They're make a pretty good stand for the dirt bike if you're in a pinch. They're pretty good for working on tires. You can also use them to step up onto the back of your truck if you're rolling your bike in the back of a truck. Alright, so I'm getting this all, I'm going to bust the bead on this all the way around. Turn it over, bust the bead here, there we go. Alright, bead's all busted. And here's a secret to getting the tire off easier. 3 tire spoons. Alright, we got our 3 spoons in there, and with each one of them I've already primed it up once just to make sure I could. And we'll just go 1, 2, 3. There, and it started. I'm going to take this one over here. Do the next section. There. Take this one here.
Do the next section. Always walking around. You get the idea. If it's feeling kind of difficult, you're trying too hard, you're doing something wrong. Just take it easy, be patient, backtrack a little bit if you need to, and get this whole thing off. You only need 2 irons at this point.
Alright, so there's one side off. Now what we're going to do is flip it over, and we're going to pull the other side forward too, so that the whole rim is inside of the tire. Basically the beads of the tire are outside of the rim on both sides when we're done here. By the way, a couple things to point out here as I'm doing this. One, I'm not a professional mechanic, so this might all be really bad advice. Also, you notice I started with the tire already off. If you don't know how to get the tire off, then you shouldn't be watching this video because you're stupid. What you want to do now is turn this video off and go watch somebody riding wheelies down the highway on a supermoto. If you're smart enough to get your own tire off, then you're smart enough to do the rest of this. Just keep on watching. Alright, now that the beads are off on both sides, like that, I'll go ahead and try to pull this whole rim out of there. Look at that. Careful that you don't pinch your tube while you're doing this part. Some people would pull the tube out ahead of time. Here, that just doesn't work for me usually. There we go. Alright. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to install these rim locks. That's going to help make this tire bulletproof. So what the rim locks are going to do is they're going to keep the tire from slipping on the rim and snapping valves. They're going to keep it from coming off if it should lose pressure when you're on the trail or on the road. It's going to give you a little bit better chance of not dying. And we're also going to use these to balance it. So one thing people do sometimes, especially on front tires on lighter bikes that go on the highway, is they'll put one rim lock in. And if you look on the tire, there's already a spot where you can put one right there. So they put one in, but then it gets really out of balance. So the secret is, first, get really light rim locks. These Motion Pros are the lightest ones I know of. And then the other one is, put two in and get them balanced. Then you should be pretty good at pretty high speeds. Alright, let's get these two installed. And there's a little bit of a setup to that if you want to get it really balanced. Like I said, I'm no mechanic, so this could all be a really stupid idea. Take it or leave it. So first thing I'm going to do is pull this plug out. There we go. There comes our little plug out. And then you got two options here. You can either drill a hole through there and put it in there, or you can seat it underneath it. Like I said, if it's a rubber strip, I usually just seat it underneath it. I think since this is more of a, feels like more like a nylon tape, I'll go ahead and just drill a hole and pop it in there that way. I'm going to cut a little hole right here. Alright. Another thing to remember is once you put rim locks in, you are no longer DOT, at least in most places that I know of. So if you're trying to get your bike inspected to be street legal, do the rim locks after you pass inspection. Alright, so this I'm going to have to loosen up when I go ahead and put the tire in, but that's not what we're doing right now. First thing we're going to do is balance this thing with the other rim lock. Alright, what I've done here is I put the wheel on its axle and put it on some jack stands. I'm using AC Delco jack stands. I strongly recommend using AC Delco jack stands because when Dale Earnhardt Jr. won his first NASCAR race, he was in an AC Delco car. Alright. So you see here, put it like this, and we're going to see if it, see how it's just, woo! That's pretty unbalanced right there. If you get going 70 miles per hour down the highway, that lack of balance might be a problem. If you have an old tube, you could just cut the valve out and put that in there. I just weighed this bolt and got to weigh about what the valve would weigh. So, alright. Right there is kind of, that's where all the weight is. Alright, so what we're going to do is opposite of that. Let's see where it is. It's really, yeah, that valve stems don't make that much weight. So what we're going to do is just opposite of that, we're going to tape on our other weight like that. See if that changes it. That's pretty well. Let's see. Let's put this guy all the way at the top again. And let's see if he falls back down. No. It's way more balanced than it was though, isn't it? I moved it over one set of spokes there just to see if that offsets any more balanced than how it was before. I think it kind of is. Yeah, we're just going to leave it like that. Alright. So that right there is where we're going to drill. Go ahead and right there. Cool. Now if you have any sharp edges, you might want to take a small round file and file in there. Make sure it's not sharp. Should be okay because you're going to have the bead lock on top of it. But you never know, maybe later down the road you want to put a plug in there and get rid of the bead lock, and if that's the case, you don't want this to be too sharp. Alright, there's bead lock number 2. Between these two bead locks, if your tire comes off, you really screwed up. Another nice thing about having 2 bead locks on there, if you totally lose your air, you can probably nurse it home and not worry too much about that tire coming off. Basically, this is almost like making a run flat system. Next tip for making bomb-proof tires is get heavy duty tubes. Might even want to use ultra heavy duty, but heavy duties always work good for me. Alright, we're going to put our core back in our tube. We're going to put a little bit of air in the tube before we put it in the tire. I'll show you how you can tell how much. That'll make things go a little bit easier. You also want to put baby powder all over your tube. That'll make it get in there easier, and it'll also keep it from binding up once it's inside there. That's about right. So what you want is just enough air where you still get a crease right there when you hold it like that. If there's no crease here, then it's got too much air in it. And if it's got creases everywhere else, it's got not enough air. That might be a bit too much air, but let's try it. Alright, I got the tube in the tire. Went right in, no problem. Now the next part, and this is the hardest part for me, is getting this rim back in one side of this tire. You want to make sure your valve stem's lined up. It doesn't need to go through right now. We can worry about that later. And also, if you have a directional tire, you'll want to look at it, see if there's an arrow saying it needs to go one way or the other. Make sure you're putting it on the right direction. I got one side on. What I did is I ended up actually walking around it with the 3 spoons, getting it all popped on there on one side, kind of like the way we initially took it off. Still got to put the other side on. So I'm going to do that next. Alright, so here's another tip. There it is. A bead buddy. So for those of you who don't have any friends, or maybe your friends are really freaking weird about being on camera, get these little guys here. These will help keep your tire on. Basically where your friend would normally hold the tire there for you like that, you pop this on there like that, and then it'll hold it for you. And then you go walk around putting your tire on. Alright, now we got to the hard part. Put the last part on. So what we're going to do kind of the opposite when we pull it off. We'll use 3 spoons. I'll show you one other trick. Windex. You're going to lubricate your rim to help make it easier to get things on there. Do it with Windex because this will dry off real quick, and when it does, it'll just make the rubber more sticky. If you use like soap and water, then it takes a long time for it to dry, and there's a good chance water gets stuck in there and your tire will slip on your rim. This right here ain't gonna last that long, and when it runs out, we'll just put more on there. Alright, had to backtrack a little bit because I forgot to make sure that this was loose. It was pinched in there. I had to go and get it unpinched. So your locks should be like this after you beat around them. And there's a downside about putting the bead locks on here, is it does make changing the tire a little bit more of a pain, but it's still not the worst part. So I think it's worth it. And when you get to this part here, this last bit, I know it seems impossible. It ain't. I think we're done with the bead buddy for now. Get some Windex in there. There we go. Home free. Home free. We know how this works, don't we? Just the opposite of how we started. 1, 2, 3. Alright. Tires on. There's the hard part. See that one right there? Not free. That one is. So we're going to have to massage this one a little bit. Looks like it's not catching on this side. It's catching on that side. And just get a tire iron in there. Pop it up a little bit. There we go. Alright, both these bead locks are free. Good. Here's a trick I use when I'm doing mountain bike tires. While there's still no air in it, I'll roll it around, put it flat, and try to get my beads seated all evenly. And I'll visually look at it and see if it looks like the beads are even. It's close. And the next thing I do is I overinflate it, and that's going to push all the beads out. You'll hear it popping as it overinflates. Alright, there's about 40 pounds. I'll take it off. Bounce it around, walk it around. Feels pretty solid. I think it's beaded evenly. Alright, now let all the air back out. Alright, now we've underinflated it, rolled it around completely flat, overinflated it, rolled it around. Looks like the beads are all set, so now we're going to just snug up our new bead locks, and then we're going to inflate it to regular pressure. I usually like to let it sit overnight and make sure there's no leaks. And if you use water to lubricate it, then you definitely want to let it sit overnight. Give it extra time to dry. You don't want to get these too tight. Just snug them up. So don't hold the back of the wrench. Hold the wrench in the middle there. Make yourself have a little less torque. I usually like to ride on the street at around 20 pounds and on the dirt around 15 pounds. And then if I'm going to be doing both, I'll do around 18 pounds. Alright, I got one more tip for y'all, and this one's important. Make sure you don't bind your forks by tightening up this bolt all the way first thing. If you tighten that up before you do your pinch bolts, it's going to pull your forks in together, make them bind, and then they're not going to work right. Going to totally screw up your suspension. So what you want to do, well, at least what I do, like I said, I'm not a mechanic. If y'all do what I tell you, and your tire falls off and you die, that's your fault for listening to some idiot on the internet. Alright, so what I do is I tighten this up, and then I tighten these pinch bolts. These are 17 foot-pounds. And then I loosen this back up. And I'll grab my front brake and push up and down and work the forks. And when you do that, this is actually floating a little bit. And I get it nice and lined up, oriented where it needs to be. Then I tighten these pinch bolts down to 17 foot-pounds. And then I tighten this all the way to where it's supposed to be, which is 46 foot-pounds. You might want to get yourself a good torque wrench and look up how many foot-pounds your axle nuts are supposed to be and actually do that. Because, you know, they're kind of important. You don't want that part to fail. Alright, that's it. That's how I do my bulletproof tires. Yep, that tire feels good. Of course, the real test will be whenever it goes flat and I don't die.